Give me just a second. Yes, I can.
Ron, Aaron, we're live again.
Okay, we're live again? Okay.
Yes.
Yep, they're on their way. Yes, sir.
You're welcome.
Oh, sir.
Okay. We did it. I'll send you an invite just a second.
We had voted to reconvene the session of this meeting. For the record, discussion was made on various matters. There was no vote, no resolutions were decided upon, and the closed session was limited to discussion only. So back to our agenda. Financial reports.
Okay. That's the tax revenue we have received by the end of February. $58.4 million, which is about $600,000 lower than last year. This is expected. That's about 95% of the budget. I also looked into the amount of current tax we received compared with the projection. We have received $56.7 million. The projection was $59.2 million. That's about $2.5 million below the projection. The delinquent tax, we have received about $1.7 million. The projection was $2.2 million. That's about $500,000. So together, it's about $3 million below the budget, the projection. Last year, between March and June, we received around $3.1 million in tax revenue. So I believe we will meet the budget for this year. The total amount of operating revenue is $52.78 million. Next page is the operating expenditures. For payroll and benefits, we spent about $21.9 million. That's 64.6% of the budget. The library materials, we spent about $7.2 million, close to 63% of the budget. All other operational accounts, about $6.1 million, about 57.5% of the budget. Debt service, we made a second payment of the year, which is about $5.2 million. So we have completed the debt payments for current year. We made a $3.76 million for principal and $2.8 million for interest. The principal balance after the payment is about $55 million. Next page is the capital project fund. We have completed security cameras at Wendy's. We spent close to $70,000. For all the projects in capital plan, we spent a total amount about $9.8 million, which is about half of budgeted amount for current year. Next page is the health insurance fund. The total amount of contribution is $2.5 million, right on the target to meet the budget. On the expenses side, the admin fee and the stop loss was close to $800,000. It's more than budgeted. The claims is about $1.7 million, little below the budget. We also had a cash on hand, close to $1.6 million. The fund balance is about $1.2 million. Also, in your board pack, from page 24 to 26, there are additional reports for investment, legal consulting, and travel conference. From page 30 to 44, you may see all payments we made in February. That's my report for the month.
Okay, Glenn, any questions? Comments? We're continuing. We have old business or unfinished business. Committee reports.
Yes. We have a guaranteed maximum price on Riverside. Staff has prepared a presentation. I'm going to have them present, and then at the end of that, I'll make a motion and we'll follow with discussion. All right. So I've put together this presentation to kind of put this whole project into context and explain a little bit about how we got here and what we plan for the future. So Cody, could you just take us to the slide? This statement here came to mind when I was putting together the presentation for two reasons. One, it's conversation and collaboration that I think tells the story of the Riverside Branch project. What was originally proposed as a renovation and then a proposal from the city of Riverside over time evolved into the current proposal that we have today. But more importantly, conversation and collaboration, I think, are the key elements for effective library service. These two words or these two actions have really informed our decisions as to what's going to take place inside of the Riverside Branch if and when it's constructed. Next slide, please. So first, I just want to walk you through kind of my reasoning and kind of vision for what Riverside could be. There's 5 elements to it. Mission-driven partnerships, like you see up in the left-hand corner. Pictured is a wonderful program called Beyond the Bell. It's a tutoring after-school tutoring program that currently takes place across the street at Riverside City Hall, which would be relocated to the library branch. Community-led programming, which would be patron-driven and user-generated content, much like it could be anything from recording of a podcast or oral histories. Collaborative meetings, like you see in the lower left-hand corner, where community groups come in and take care of the business that they want. And lastly, flexible floor plans. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because when I think about the commitments we're making, the financial commitments we're making, much of those, many of those amounts are linked to the collection and its size and the way it's positioned within a library. And so my proposal here is to invest in modular shelving that would give both staff and the community the ability to reorganize the branch as they see fit. The advantage would be if you decide to relocate the children's section to a different area or a more suitable area of the library, that could be done quickly. Another advantage is that if the community decides they want to do indoor programming during winter months, these shelving units could be cleared away, and there would be more space for the community to hold on-site programming. It's a significant investment, which you'll see as we propose project costs, but I wanted to make you aware that this is our vision. I mean, and lastly, you see project-based learning. The idea here is to have the community involved with deciding what it is that worked best for Riverside. Our model right now is based a lot on current trends in library programming, but what I envision here for this community is for them to play an active role in deciding how the branch is organized and the types of services that are offered within the building. So next slide. Here is the current design. As you can see, it definitely emphasizes people and light, and it's a significant improvement from what's across the street, no offense. But it's a beautiful building that we think would serve the community well. Next slide, please. So here is a timeline of the project and its evolution. And much like the agendas we look at in the board meetings, you'll see asterisks by certain steps along the way. And these asterisks represent Mid-Continent Public Library Board action. It's important here to note, like in 2014, the city of Riverside came to us with various proposals and renderings for what they thought the library would look like. And as you saw on the previous slide, what we finally arrived at was something much different. Again, evidence of an ongoing conversation and collaboration that got us to a mutually agreeable outcome. Also, I think it's very important to note that in 2017, the numbers were quite different than they are today. And that shouldn't be forgotten, that originally it was a renovation proposed at roughly $740,000. And here today, we're in the millions, and we'll get to a detailed budget as we move forward. But that's a point that we need to remember. It is true that the city of Riverside has made significant contributions towards the cost of this project, but the cost to the library still remains in the millions of dollars. So this again is kind of the story that got us to the point where we are, culminating in 2022, where there was a land swap that's valued roughly at $650,000, and then a purchase and cash contribution of $1.35 million towards the construction of this building. Next slide, please. This, I just want to drive home the point that to me, I think, and to many of the trustees here, the relationship between Riverside and Mid-Continent Public Library is an example of what a true partnership is. There's this reciprocity. I mean, it is true that Riverside is gaining from this, right? There'll be one property that can be developed for another use and a new property developed that serves the community. But in turn, we have access to a community that's in desperate need of our services. And the community gets a significant upgrade in the quality of the space that they go to on a daily basis. Next slide, please. Here we have a construction timeline, and this kind of just gives you, it chronicles the steps that will be taken if the board approves the guaranteed maximum price. It's important to note that on April 7th, the GMP will expire. And if that does, the bids that we've received will go away, and we would have to renegotiate that moving forward. By everybody's best estimate is you would see annual increases in the neighborhood of 6% on construction cost each year you delay this project. Next slide, please. Here is an outline of the costs. And so I will walk you through it. As you see at the top, you have a guaranteed maximum price of $6,941,385. These italicized numbers beneath are the soft costs associated with the project. And I'm not asking you to vote on these amounts. These are estimates based on our plans for programming the space. In previous presentations, we proposed a number for FF&E, which is furniture and equipment, that was roughly $200,000 lower than what you see here. And the reason is again, we're moving away from fixed shelving, or we propose to move away from fixed shelving and make an investment in modular shelving. This may also mean reduced cost over time. It may also mean a reduced collection size, but we don't think that that's going to have a significant impact on the public. Another number that's changed significantly is moving and storage. I think as originally proposed at the building committee, the number was in the neighborhood of 100 and something thousand. But we looked into what this number was based on and made a better estimate of roughly $60,000. Again, these are estimates, but we think that number would come in far less than what was originally proposed. So that gets us to a total project cost of $8.8 million, $8.9 million. Which seems like a significant amount, but when you back out the cost of property and the city of Riverside's contribution, it takes us to a number of $6.8 million. And so this really is the question for the board and for the library. If you want to move forward with this project, this is the number that we need to think about when we're having conversations about budgeting. When we're talking about cash flow for the coming years. But this is kind of a hard number that we really need to think about. The vote today is 6.9, but ultimately the amount of cash we have to produce to complete this project is 6.8 in that neighborhood, 6.897. So next slide, please. So there's the number. Again, I know it gets confusing. I'm giving all these different numbers. The construction cost, the guaranteed maximum price for construction is this amount. Later on down the road, as we get into the budgeting process, you will see requests for additional funds for the inside of the branch. But right now, the time-sensitive number that we need to vote on is this amount. And so that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I was hoping question.
Well, I have questions. I guess without a question.
Want a motion first?
Can we go to the next slide, which has the motion? And
Oh, excuse me. All
I
right.
can make the motion.
All right, there we go.
I make a motion for approval of the recommendation from the building committee to the full board to accept work package 16 Riverside for the grant for the total guaranteed maximum price of $6,135. We be paid from the capital projects fund, and approval authorizing staff to draft the notice to proceed.
Second. Second.
Oh, second. One second.
Discussion. All right. We moved in second that we approve the motion as presented on the screen. All in favor, please signify by saying
No, wait,
No.
discussion.
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 Our architect and our general contractor is in the room, so if there's questions that might be out of them, I could talk about this for 45 minutes, but I felt like we've been talking this for 4 or 5 years. If people have individual specific questions, I understand is that all this ripples through the budget, and that might result in other considerations down the road. But I would strongly urge my fellow trustees to approve this, because I actually, in some ways, you need the perspective of somebody who hasn't been so deep into it all. And I think Aaron, in an effort to understand the project, had to come to an understanding that it was a partnership, and that they are financial partners, and that's where I was in my own thinking. But I think that Aaron has advanced my thinking about it, that they're community partners in this. And as evidenced by the mayor, who is no longer here, but went to other meeting, is there strong feelings and strong support in this community for this particular project. And moreover, we have advanced this idea all along the way, going back. If we were disinclined to do this, we probably should not have approved the land swap and taken their money, because that propelled us down the path where we are today. So I would harken back to the slide that shows the book. And the very first proposal, right below that. Thank you, Cody. Everybody has a severe reaction to that when they saw that. Everybody had a severe reaction. I should say this in consideration, these were not our architects that brought us these ideas. To the second one, where we would be on the second floor. So you can see how our thinking has moved and shifted and evolved, but also understand is that we've this project, by the length of the time that we have been considering it, has been subject to not inconsequential extraordinary inflation and construction costs. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
I have a number of questions. I think the first one is, this is kind of looking at the price tag at the bottom of a window sticker on a vehicle, without knowing what's in the vehicle. So who has looked at the details? Do we know what we're buying here? Do we know who's getting paid what? I guess I'm curious as to, is this, in terms of the profit margins that are in there for done, are they standard? Are they escalated? Proving a number to me seems, you can rubber stamp this. I'm not inclined to do that. It would be nice if we had some details about the contractors involved, the extent of JE done, how much of this is for base materials, labor. I assume you have that, but I know it hasn't been presented to the board, but I think at some point the board has to do something more than just approve a number. That's one of my primary concerns here. The second one is last June, actually starting about a year ago, I started making inquiries of the capital fund status and where we were relative to budget. As you're all aware, that has evolved over time. It first became known in November that we were substantially over budget. We finally got some better numbers in January, and we're now $17 million over budget. It looks like we're going over more because this number that's being proposed is 553,000 higher than what was put on the board in January. And when we had the discussion last June, as was presented to the public and to the board in the budget, the number between three branches, Green Valley, East Independence, and Riverside, was $18 million. It was deemed that was more than adequate. When I totaled those three numbers currently, including this one, I get to in excess of $20 million. So we're about 12% over just on three branches. And I guess my concern is who's minding the store? Who's minding the budget? Is the architect have that in mind, or are we designing things that we think we want, and not necessarily always taking into consideration the cost? That is a concern. If we continue on this trend, we don't have the resources. I don't care where you set the levy. At least that's my opinion. You have to have some budgetary controls over capital costs, and I don't see where that we have exercised those controls, at least like I believe they should have been, looking at the numbers. The other aspects that are concerned to me are that we don't have an updated Prop L summary. The last one we had is as of November 30th. There's somewhere in the range of $4 million that has been spent. We should be looking at this from a financial standpoint. If you're going to make it a $7 million decision, you should know One, where it stands relative to budget, and secondly, where it's going to impact the cash flow. We don't have an updated cash flow projection. So you say this should come out of the capital projects fund. That fund doesn't have sufficient resources to do this. At least I'm not aware that it does, because we don't have any numbers to say that we do. So I don't think it's prudent for the board to approve $6.9 million at this point, when we don't know where the funds are going to come from or if they're adequate. As I looked at the schedule, it looks like we have until April 7th to do that. And it would be my recommendation to the board to finish the work of updating the costs and updating the cash flow and defer this decision until those are complete. And surely those can be done before April 7th. But as it stands, I don't think we've done all the work necessary.
Mr. President. Let me provide a couple of responses. I actually sat with Aaron and looked at the budget numbers. I want to remind the board that this is a guaranteed maximum price, that it very well could be that it comes back at amount less than that. That would be the hope and the desire. Given new eyes and new attentions on this project, that could be a desired outcome. On the cash flow, these issues were identified back last summer, that we had a liquidity problem with our investments and that the capital costs were overrunning. And so we've had an opportunity over the past 4 or 5, if not 6 months, to get updated cash flow or projections and what it is that this might look like. And I'm just doubtful that we would get satisfactory work in the next 2 weeks prior to this bid expiring that we haven't already received. I mean, there's an opportunity to do this. So our failure to advance this question should not trump the fact that we got a bid that expires here in the days ahead. And when that bid expires, we automatically subject ourselves to additional escalation costs. And I think that we should be prudent in the management of the money for this particular project and approve this tonight. I respect anybody that has their doubts and concerns about this project. And if they're not satisfied with either the idea, the proposal, the financing, the need, please vote no.
Other comments, questions?
I'd like to say that I'm one of the few board members that was here when that original open book design was presented. I remember it very well. It's been a long road here. I would like us to remember that Riverside was the first entity in our 3-county system to approach us as full partners in this. They've waited and waited and waited. And I think the board in good faith has made not more than promises, have made agreements to move forward on building Branch and Riverside. The option, if this is not passed, is for a community that has waited more than a decade to wait more in an inadequate building with some significant foundational issues. I think that we also need to remember that this is the last of our projects, that this community is worthy, and that this is a generational project. These buildings are being built for the next generation. It would have taken us more than 25 years to do this incrementally, but we felt it important that the improvements and expanded access was necessary, was pivotal for a lot of communities during the pandemic. And I think that that if we do not move forward with this this amount now, it's only going to cost us more because the prices will go up and things will have to be reconfigured and remanaged again. So I would like to go on record as being strongly in favor of approving this and moving forward and providing needed services to one of our valued communities. Thank you.
Other comments? Rita, please.
I think that if it had been done in the order that it was proposed, Riverside would be done. But it would be another library that would be waiting to be finished. And when you're working with your budget, you sit down at the dinner table and you talk over what can we do, what can we not do? And if we put the walls on it, we'll be able to put on the roof. I mean, it comes down to, you have to be very creative in making your money last until the end of the month. And I don't think we have been very creative in making our money last here till the end of the projects. So I would very much like to see the Riverside Library be the best library that we can possibly make it. We also need the funding. And I think it's critical that we stay within our budget, which means redesigning someplace. And I don't think we're there yet tonight.
Other comments, questions? Any questions for our guests? I guess my observation is not necessarily from the financial elements, although they are absolutely critical perspectives. Mine is more so from the fact that the only partner we've had from any municipality has been Riverside. They were the first ones to come up and the only ones to come up to join in this effort, and they were put off to be last. And I also think that there's a commitment that's been made. I feel that there's a sense of almost integrity to it that we have to go along with it. So go along with it. There are going to be absolute financial implications that we will have to face. And I think if anybody expects there to be the Riverside branch and then every expenditure the way it's done in the past, whether it be conferences or we buy 12 books, and then therefore we continue buying 12 books of any publication. I think those days are dead and gone. The result, of course, is because of what's been brought clear to this board over the past roughly 9 months, that there's been absolute a blind eye cast toward any respect and adherence to the budget. And now we're reaping that result. And I think it's incredibly unfair to say that Riverside has to be the one to carry the burden. I think the burden should be carried at least, if at all, by Riverside. And again, the obvious implications are what? Cutting collection purchases, maybe eliminating the hours because of the cost of staffing and utilities. There's only so much money. It's a finite source of funds. But I think to have Riverside bear that cost compared to everything else, and just going back to in 2016, we had a vote as taxpayers to replace or renovate our branches. So what we're asking right now is to do what the ballot said, to replace. But since then, we've done something that besides replace and renovate, we've built new ones. The way I read the ballot, that was never on the ballot, but we've spent millions for new branches, which were not renovations or replacements. So the profligate spending of the past, I think, is lamentable, but shouldn't fall on the heads of the people in Riverside that use that branch. I think it should fall on a lot of other heads. Mike, please.
Yeah, I just want to go on record as being part of this process. I wasn't there at the beginning of it, and but probably from, I don't know, 2018, was that about it? Brent came into the picture. One of the first meetings I attended was in the Riverside branch because we held a lot of our meetings actually in the old branch. And the mayor brought the same team, and they've been meeting with us with the same team over all those years. And I'm very familiar with Riverside. It was the first city I've ever lived in when we moved to Kansas City in 1969. And from what it was then to what it is now, it's completely different. It's a jewel compared to what it was like. And so I agree with what Ron said and all those issues, but Riverside, this is a collaboration between us and a city. And there isn't any other piece like that in here, as far as I know. from what I've seen, since I've been on this board and been on the building committee. And so I think we need to move forward with this. There's implications, yes, no doubt about it, financial and everything else, and we have to address those. And we are, I believe. So I'm looking at Gordon, but we are collectively as a board, we are addressing those issues. And they're challenges, but we're going to take on the challenge and we're going to do it right. And so anyway, I just really commend this and just that staff, Mary, Kathy Rose, the mayor, and her staff. It's really been an incredible process with that city. So I really appreciate them coming to the table.
Any comments, questions, discussion? Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the motion as presented on the screen. Teresa, would you please do a
Absolutely.
roll call, please?
Mr. Pease,
Yes.
Ms. Virgo,
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Cook,
No.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Lazio,
Aye, yes.
the Munyon,
Yes.
Dr. Pandolfi,
Aye.
Mr. Shondelmeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Steph,
Yes.
Ms. Weiss,
Yes to Riverside, but no to the way we're doing it right now.
Dr.
The amount.
I want to be clear, that's a yes vote then.
Is that,
Either vote yes to the motion or you.
Then I'll vote no, because I just think the amount.
I just want to be clear, Rita.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
Okay.
so yeah,
To the amount.
okay. So a no vote, right?
Oh,
I'm going to record it as no. Dr. Wilson,
yes.
Ms. Wyckoff,
Yes.
okay, the motion passes.
There's a few other items that won't take as long. As many years. One is the Green Valley branch lease. Let me just cue this up very simply, is that Green Valley is under construction. We're in a rental space in a shopping center and we want to do a month-to-month lease. That'd be the most advantageous to us financially to do that. And we believe that we will be able to move into Green Valley by September. And the copies of the lease is in Word docs. And Cody, if you want to pop it up on the screen, this has been reviewed, and if we approve this, then staff will execute the agreement. So can you go back to the motion? I move approval of the recommendation of the building committee to the full board to extend the Green Valley lease through September 2023.
Second.
I have questions. Sure. I had it with me, but there are two lease amounts on there, aren't there? So which one are we?
We're doing the month.
So is that the, I don't know what that, is that the 3,600 or is it the 5,500?
It is 3706.50.
It's the first,
Yes, it's the first line.
yeah, first line.
Yeah, that's about $2,000 less than the second line. Is it?
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, thank you. Good.
Any other questions? All right, was there anything else on this?
No.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the Green Valley branch lease as presented on the screen. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Wait, just Dr. Pandolfi.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any opposed? Abstaining? Thank you.
Abstain.
One abstention.
Thank you.
The next item, actually, there's a building committee meeting at 4:00. It lasted 10 minutes. But it considered the sole item of the Farview branch, which is our closest library to us. Just as a backstory for people who are in the audience, this was a building that was an early education center that was operated by the Fort Osage School District. They passed a bond issue and built a brand new, beautiful early education center. The building sat vacant. The school superintendent there by the name of Jason Snodgrass, who was the school superintendent of the year recently, hung onto the building because he thought there might be some important viable community use for this building. And that emerged with the ideas that we could operate a small library branch there. And part of the space that would be shared with the Community Services League. The Fort Osage School District would continue to own the building and we would incur some normal maintenance costs. We did that on a trial basis because we frankly weren't sure how it would work. This is an area of high need and it has proved to be a very successful location. There's some fondness for this location on the part of staff and the board because it isn't sometimes how much money that you spend, but how you organize yourself and where you locate yourself. And so this has proved successful. A lease has come up to be expired and there's a desire to extend the lease. What's different between this lease than the last time? We have the option, not the obligation, to buy the building during the course of the memorandum of understanding, if we so choose to. We also have the right of first refusal if the Fort Osage School District decides it wants to sell its asset to some other party. And the Community Services League has a second right of refusal to do so. We now are responsible for lawn care. Previously, we're only responsible for snow. I'm not so sure how that worked out. So we're now responsible for all seasons. And then there was a deleted because point in there about removing the playground equipment. This has been reviewed by our attorney, which it hadn't been before, and that's why we didn't have it ready for the last board meeting. But now we have it. If we approve this tonight, it will go to the Community Services League and then finally to the Fort Osage School Board. And it's a three-party agreement. So if any one party declines it, then we would have to go back and regroup. But there's been significant discussion and great enthusiasm support for continuing this partnership. So the document is there. And I stand for any questions, which I will defer to staff.
Questions? Comments? No comments, then I guess we'll take it to vote. All in favor of proceeding with executing and entering into the Fairview memorandum of understanding.
Sorry, I didn't get a. Was that a motion?
I'll make a motion as
I thought we had.
as typed on the screen. I'll do it again in case I fail to.
I didn't have a second.
Oh, a second. And we had the discussion. We had discussion and have now conduct the vote. All in favor of entering into the memorandum of understanding as presented on the screen, please signify by saying aye.
Can we have a roll call?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or abstaining?
Did you want a roll call? Someone said
Yes.
roll call.
I would like a roll call.
I think we should.
Okay, we can do that. Ms. Virgo,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Lazio,
Aye.
Ms. Mannion,
Yes.
Dr. Pandolfi,
Aye.
Mr. Shondelmeyer,
Aye.
Ms. Stepp,
Aye.
Ms. Weiss. Aye. Dr. Wilson. Aye. I believe Michelle has left the meeting. Ms. Wyckoff has left the meeting, correct, Cody?
Yes, that's correct, Teresa.
Mr. Thies.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Two other quick items. There's a capital projects update. You can look at them on their slides. So I don't know that there's any need to go over them. If anybody has questions about any building project, I would encourage us to, hang around afterwards, or our staff can, talk about them all. Two other quick comments. This will come up in announcement that there is a groundbreaking for East Independence. It's Friday, March 31st. And it's to the board president at the ungodly hour of 9 a.m., but that is 9 a.m. and that's what it is. And the public is invited to that. Before we go to other parts of the board agenda, I want to thank everybody for the thoughtful way in which we consider Riverside, because it's been kind of a long, interesting sort of conversation, and I appreciate the outcome. I appreciate the people who felt so inclined voted no, and that we can proceed. Our board president said one thing about Proposition L, because I think we're reinterpreting what that was about sometimes. There were two new library locations that were specifically in the ballot language. One was East Independence for the groundbreaking, and the other one was East Lee Summit. So we did contemplate new library locations, the new library services, though the bulk of the capital program was renovating existing branches where they are. One could easily make an argument, we got a new library at Coleman Road because we demolished the existing library because it made more sense to build a new library. So that location got an entirely new building, though that's not how we saw it at the outset. So that's everything from the building committee.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did you have any more?
That's everything from here.
That's great. First item on the agenda is the non-binding levy approval for 2023. This is a procedural item. You can help me out. I think the practice historically was to approve this at the statutory maximum, which is 40 cents. Apparently that created some confusion and some concern with Jackson County, correct? And so they asked us to provide something that was closer in range. So it was the feeling that if we use the prior year levy, which was 3468, that even though we have a voluntary levy that's lower, but just for the sake of this procedural item, is to approve it at this the previous year's rate, because our current levy is subject to Hancock, so it can go up or down depending on how assessments come in. Anyway, so that's the motion, is to recommend the full board to set the 2023 non-binding levy rate to be 0.3468 per $100 of assessed valuation. That is the motion.
Motion second.
Second.
Discussion.
I have a question. Is this 3.3468 going to be used to calculate the budget as we go forward for this year, or will the budget be calculated on our actual needs given our cash flow and growing library system?
The voluntary levy is applicable for 2 years. So
this is really in keeping with that.
This is a procedural item only.
Well, I'm asking beyond that.
Well, the levy cannot be changed until the 2024 year. To answer your question.
Okay, thank you for answering my question.
But our current levy is subject to Hancock adjustments. And we won't know that until August or early September.
Yes, and my comment to that is then it's cost of living, but it can't exceed 5%.
Correct.
Right. This is Lori. I have a quick question. So if we set it at 334 or 3.4, whatever it is, so that locks us in at that price, or if that adjustment, could it be higher? Should we ask for higher since we know that we're going to be a shortfall?
I'm not sure about the shortfall. The levy will be calculated based on the assessment we will receive from all 3 counties. Then we will take the reduction past last year from the calculated levy to get to current year's new levy for 2023. So I don't believe, based on the information we have received from Jackson County, I don't believe the new levy will be higher than what we have for 2022.
Okay, thank you.
The questions, comments?
I had a quick one. This is probably for Quan. I just read that Jackson County may be going up on assessments, but whenever that happens, there's also a lot of protests against
Yes,
that.
based on the
Yeah.
information we received from Jackson County, the real estate property may go up for about 23%. And the number of disputed accounts could be over 30,000. 4 years ago, the number was 20,000 accounts.
That could create another cash flow issue for us.
Other comments, questions? It's been moved and seconded that establish the non-binding levy at the rate of 0.3468 per 100 assessed value. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Opposed? Abstaining? Thank you.
Okay, next on my agenda is just an update regarding the CFO Systems Prop-L scoping project. We had an initial meeting with them. The timeline is that they will get back to us probably late April, early May. They have a number of documents that Quan has provided, and so that project is on its way. That's it. On that, the rest of the meeting, as far as the finance agenda, which you can go look online, we talked about the levy, we talked about projections, we reviewed revenues, we reviewed the Forbes report, and we wanted a Prop-L update, but that is incomplete at this point. And that was it.
Okay, thank you. One thing that we started at the last meeting was to have the opportunity for the other committees to offer any information, even though there may not have been a formal committee meeting, and with special invitation with, of course, the approval of our CEO for the executives to share anything that would be of importance here at headquarters, but maybe not rising to the requirements of calling a committee meeting. So, and if there's nothing, then of course, we just have no report. But anything on fundraising development?
We received word last week from the Missouri State Library that we've been awarded an LSTA Technology Ladder grant for $19,200. And that is going to help us replace our early literacy stations that are each of our branches. I don't know if you've ever seen these wee little computers. But they are meant for children to build literacy skills. So there's activities that are preloaded on those computers about letters, numbers, colors, all those great things. The great thing about the vendor that we work with is that, again, these are preloaded. Kids aren't able to access the internet or get outside of anywhere they shouldn't be. So it's a nice, thing for them to have. My favorite thing about them is when the kids put the headphones on, they don't realize how loud they're talking. And so they're screaming practically, but it's pretty cute. So we do have at least one of those in each of our branches. When did we purchase those last round?
I can't remember. It's been a couple of years.
I think they're mostly 6-7 years old. They get a lot of use in a lot of the branches. And so we are either replacing or adding additional early literacy stations at several of our branches. So we're going to be purchasing 16 total, as well as some additional tables, chairs, extra keyboards, mice, and headphones. So we're going to be replacing older stations at Lee Summit and South Independence, and we're going to be adding new stations in addition to the ones that are already there at Colburn Road, Blue Springs North, Blue South, Kearney, Parkville, Platte City, Riverside, North Independence, and Excelsior Springs. And we'll also purchase ones for the new East Independence branch. So we'll have those here at headquarters ready for when that's opening. So that's what we got this month. That's our most recent. And we also have a Library Lovers event coming up we wanted to let you know about. Jill Orr is an author from Columbia, Missouri. She writes a mystery series, and we will be hosting her for our Library Lovers VIP event, which is on April 29th at 11:30 at MGC. We'd love for any of you to come, but please let me or Lindsay know, or you won't have a meal there. And it should be a nice meal that we're having with Jill Orr to discuss her work. So.
Thank you. Just want to admit that admitting shameless support and exuberance for what the Library Lovers does. It's a good deal. It's really a different perspective for what this organization has. And it has a transformation from an organization to an organism. And I think the Library Lovers is probably the fastest way to get there. And they're perfectly enjoyable, delightful times, and much more of a sense of the family, if you will, that is through the Library Lovers than certainly board meetings. It's a good deal. Please.
I have a question for you, and that is, do the little computers, do they come with blue light blocking screens? Protect the children's eyes.
I don't know the answer to that question, Rita, but I can certainly find out, Brian, and I can contact the vendor and see.
Yes.
There may be, if not, there may be some kind of film we can put on the top of the screens that would help protect little eyes.
Also, sometimes these newer computers come with settings that you can have blue light
Yeah,
option on.
we will double check on that and let Erin know what the answer is.
Is there any report information on personnel and human resources?
Basically, we're going to be hard at work this next month, looking at the personnel budget that we can present to hopefully bring to the full board.
Great. Thank you. Technology. Anything? Lori?
I'm sorry, no, I have nothing new to report.
Okay. And personnel check, library report.
All right, okay, I promise this will be quick and painless and enjoyable. So, Cody, could you bring up, what was that?
Return.
No. Look, we have to honor the people that make all this happen. So I'm gonna go through a little overview of some wonderful people who contribute to our success. We have Michelle Lichtdijk from the Blue Ridge branch. She's served us for 24 years, or served the public for 24 years. She's been a bright light at Blue Ridge, and she's very creative and great book displays. And we couldn't be happier to have her, and we hope she stays another 25 years. That's a joke. But anyway, thank you, Michelle. Next slide. We have Rebecca Williams at the Clay Como branch, 25 years, and Tammy Glass, also technical services. Both are just wonderful employees. We've contributed a lot to public service, but Tammy takes pride in providing users high quality service by getting materials to our branches in a timely fashion. So it's not often that we publicly acknowledge the great contributions of our cataloging and technical services librarians. And I just want to drive home the point that without them, this place would be an absolute mess and you'd never be able to find anything. So thank you, Tammy, and thank you, Rebecca. Next slide. We have Cheryl Pemberton, who works with IRS, and she served us 20 years. She's done a wonderful job, and we couldn't be, our Her dedication and passion for library program shines through in everything that she does, says her manager, Mariah. Then we have Tandy Van Male and Van Maley. Okay, so our beloved Jennifer Ridley writes these pronunciations for me, and I should have, Jennifer's not with us, but I thank her for doing that. Van Maley, it's a beautiful name, but Tandy is a dedicated staff member who's mentored many staff members over the years. It's a very important point. And she has many strong ties to the Lee Summit community. She connects with many customers through her warmth and understanding. And it's that mentoring that really is key to kind of building new people and elevating staff and getting them to move on and up within our organization. So next slide. And lastly, we have a new branch manager at South Independence, Jackie Slingsby. And we're happy to have her there. South Independence is a wonderful branch and she's a strong manager. I spoke with her this morning and I'm very happy to have her on board. Next slide. Okay, so here is what we've all been waiting for. There's been comments over the years that the trustees would like to learn more about daily life in the branches. And staff heard you loud and clear, and we decided to create this monthly report specifically for you that chronicles the story of daily life in our branches. What we will do each month is we will update you on key events, kind of special moments, so to speak, and other key figures that I think are important to this board. So read it at your leisure. But two things kind of stood out to me. The Woodmead Center has this wonderful group called the Book Ninjas. And I'm a little afraid of them, but I'm hopefully I can get a meeting. But nonetheless, it's a self-organized group that gave themselves that name, and they gathered to talk about books like Front Desk or Echo Mountain. And they've even hosted a presentation by library staff. And you'll see for each of the counties, there's a story there. But these stories, the common thread is that it's kind of these meaningful experiences that would not be possible were it not for the investment we've made in our communities. So if you know, each month you'll get this. Sometimes there'll be more and sometimes there'll be less. But another thing that I'm very proud of is in the back, we have this magnificent QR code that takes you to a tsunami of information. And what this will do is if you follow the URL or the QR code, you'll get statistical reports that speak to our personnel budgets, fees paid for legal and consulting services, or conference and travel expenditures. But it's there digitally, easily accessible to whoever wants to read over. And lastly, on the last page, this project, I think, and that no pressure to Jackson Hodges of the Story Center, but the Memory Lab is a grant-funded project, am I right? And I think this one has legs. So what this is creating technology or providing technology to the public where they can digitize their own family history, VHS or slides or a roll of film, and preserve it for their families and future generations to observe. And there's so much that can be done with this content, and we're happy to make this available. And if all goes well, it'll transition over to Midwest Genealogy Center for use. And so our model for things like this is that the beta testing is done at a very kind of small level. And if it works, I could see it being scaled up and spread out across the system. This report could not have been done without the support of the marketing department, and in particular, Amber Knoll, who, if Jim helped me here, but I believe that she is a graduate of Kansas City Art Institute, right? She's a wonderful designer, and this is not the first version that was presented. What was presented in the beginning, I thought Well, it was wonderful. But anyway, it looked very similar to other publications that we have. And my ask of them was to come up with a publication that looked more like a monthly magazine, but that was specifically designed for you. So each month you will get this report. If you have any questions on it, feel free to ask us. But I'm happy to be giving this to you. And I think it's stories like this that will motivate us to keep doing the great work that we're doing.
Yeah, great.
All right. Any questions?
Is this available outside the?
For a fee, yes. No, I'm kidding.
Modest.
Right now, I mean, it'll be offered digitally. Keep down on printing costs. We're not going to distribute this widely across the system, but it can be accessible to the public. And if they go to Word docs, but maybe we'll even think about putting a link to it on our website. But yes, we'll print it for board meetings and then it'll live on in the ether. All right, what else? That's all I have. No new business. No announcements. Oh, we do have announcements. Oh, yeah, well, here they are. We have the most important one, I think, or the most exciting, I hope to be, is East Independence groundbreaking on March 31st at 9 a.m. There's a library closure on May 29th for Memorial Day. What am I missing? Easter, how could I forget? April 9th, Easter Sunday. All MCPL locations will be closed. Those locations that offer Sunday hours. So March 31st, April 9th, and May 29th are all dates to remember. But within that is a long list of exciting board meetings you're welcome to attend. So food for fines, don't forget that. Yes, that's a good one. Excuse me, I'm not wearing my long range glasses. But May 1st through 7th is food for fines. And this is something that we do, and libraries all across the country do on an annual basis. And so, Diana, could you give any deets on that, or Richie?
We do it twice a year. It is well received, and this gives the customers an opportunity to clear fines and donate food. And the food goes to local pantries in each individual's area.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, trustees' comments.
I want to note the passing of Mike Burke. Mike Burke was a former Mid-Continent Public Library trustee on the board very, very briefly, and actually was co-chair of the Proposition L campaign. And, you know, you're in your house on a Sunday afternoon and you look down and your phone says Mike Burke, and he's calling you up and he's wanting to talk with you about the library. And so he was just an extraordinarily civil person and a great presence in our community. And so I wanted to say that.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I want to say, I just really like this.
Yeah.
This is really, really good.
Thank you.
And so I don't know what the plans are, but
Every month, see you.
so that can be had digitally too.
Yeah, you can share it with anyone.
Yeah, that would be awesome, but I really think this is fabulous.
Thank you.
This is Lori Lamagna, and I would just like to say congratulations to Rebecca and Tammy and Michelle for their 25 years of service to the library, and I appreciate each of you. And also to welcome to Jackie, and thank you guys so much for all that you guys do for our libraries. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? With regard to the persons who were just named in for the recognition they've done for the library, maybe you refresh my memory. Is there some type of not ceremony, but an event in which their achievement and services is more broadly mentioned? I think like
Well, we have.
legacy lunch or something.
Do you want to talk to this about it?
Yeah, they're recognized in a variety of ways. In their individual departments, and branches, they are recognized usually during staff meetings. And they get a certificate or a mug or whatever. It depends on how many years they've been here. They are recognized in the weekly HR digest. The HR department puts together information for staff, and they are recognized in there. If they are branch managers, if we have a system-wide meeting or an all-staff meeting, they're recognized there. And anyone who has 30 years or more gets lunch with the director every year. So you will get your experience later in the year because I did it last fall. But so yeah, there's a variety of ways that they're recognized.
And I see the legacy luncheon has been scheduled for July 14th.
Yes, yes, it was, and it will be at the Midwest Genealogy Center this year.
More comments? I guess maybe the last comment for the evening was that as a few minutes ago, when we decided to do the go ahead in Riverside, there will be absolute financial implications that are just unavoidable. And I think it would behoove all of us to look at where we have things that can no longer be continued, or at least look at it very carefully. I just mentioned a couple examples. It may turn out that utility costs will be a factor, so that could affect ours. Some of the outreach, like, for example, I noticed here at the mugs we have, lots of times we give out mugs for reading books and things like that. And if I recall correctly, one of the last efforts in this area for mugs was $16,000. Maybe that's something we have to look at. Nonetheless, the use or misuse, whatever, of the budgetary efforts towards the Prop L, certainly the positioning of the investments, all will have very significant dire consequences we're going to have to face. My option was not to face them at the cost of Riverside, but definitely at the cost of something else. So this budgetary process we're having right now is going to be extremely, extremely vital. So living on that happy note, I think I'd entertain a motion for adjourn, unless there's somebody else.
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Second, so moving second that we adjourn. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.